Yes, cheers to that. I don't have anything nearly so interesting, but let's see which way. There is a 1 million cups mug right on the shelf, right there
Oh,
behind
I
me,
see it.
blurred
I see it. Very nice.
in
Good
my
work,
bokeh
JDM.
background here. So Cameron, you're looking different today.
Well, I got a haircut, and this is what I look like after coming back from Africa.
Well, we all look different. We all are different after we experience a big cultural event like that. Can't wait to hear how it's affecting our buddy Cameron. But for those of you who don't know Ben, you guys, and that's probably most of you actually don't know Ben. But Ben's a friend of mine out in the Midwest. He is. We had originally met through 1 Million Cups, and I'm sure we'll come back to that in a minute because you're a regional rep out there. We're never my regional rep, but that's how we intersected. Also, you've got a podcast with some awesome guests. You've got a book, another book coming out. You're an entrepreneur. You're all the things, and culturally, just a perfect fit. So while Cameron's out, so that it doesn't become like one of those awkward solo podcasts, figure we'd bring on some fun people to help take the pressure off, make this not boring. So no pressure on you, Ben, but we're expecting you to deliver and be entertaining and fun. But let's. I know I gave you just like the 30,000 foot intro there, but Ben, tell our intrepid listeners who you are.
Yeah, thanks, JDM and Cameron. Cheers to both of you for curating so many different on-ramps for founders, ecosystem allies, people interested in this entrepreneurial lifestyle to collide and to build together. You did a nice job of introducing me, and one of my least favorite questions is like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And
that's a hard question.
So
honestly.
My latest response the last few years is it's a secret. Like, let's just move on. Or like, tell me more about what you're interested in right now, right? What creative season are you building into? And then attaching whatever, of things of interest from there. I was called a polymath one time, and I really take pride in that. Like, I had to look it up. I didn't know what it meant. And it's like the modern version of a Renaissance man, right? Someone who's gone down a lot of paths, seen a lot of things, and has a unique level of experiential wisdom. And whether it was that first time side hustle, getting a computer science degree, activating these different entrepreneurial quests, I think the real collision count starts to add up when you think about having coffee every Wednesday for 13 years, in an environment like 1 million cups. And so asking that thoughtful question, listening, being generous with that type of leadership, but hearing so many different types of people's, business ventures has created a unique sense of, I suppose, empathy.
It would have to, right?
But also like awareness of how this entrepreneurial lifestyle can come together. And I've learned that persistence is a wild card. I've learned that this is not the easy path, but it's one of the most accessible paths to career nirvana. And so cheers to entrepreneurs curating change in an environment they trust, side hustles, right? Being able to flex that innovative muscle. And then, of course, being a founder and activating your own quest. So I've enjoyed a lot of different activities along the way, and it's a treat to be here today.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for hopping in. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. I couldn't agree more on like how banal and unhelpful the like what do you do question is, right? It's like for me, if somebody asks me that and they're not in our world, I find I really have no short way of giving them any indication of what I do. Right.
Well, what happens is you start listing things off,
right?
And in a short amount of time, you start to look diluted to mediocrity.
Right. Yes,
when
exactly.
In fact, they are all like different types of capitals that you're leveraging, and they all connect through you. And so I do believe that the level of focus is required if you've taken external money, if you have staff that relies on you. But we're so efficient that I think it's almost misguided to think you have to do one thing, and the likelihood of you doing just one thing is low. And so it's an interesting question that I think is almost like a paradox from the past.
I've started answering the question, like the "What do you do?" question, a little bit sarcastically. So I've just started when somebody says, like, they say, "What do you do?" and I'll say, "No one's never really told me," or just like it's never been made clear to me. Like
Here's
I have
another
no
good
idea.
one. So who are you with? You.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Like those chamber mixers right before the business cards like are supposed to swap, right? Yeah, it's like, who are you with? I'm with you.
Exactly.
I thought that was
Exactly.
obvious.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's awesome. I had so instead of asking people what they do when I meet people, now I'll ask them, what they've been working on the last 2 weeks, right? Just like let's dive in, like what's top of mind, what's the big thing? It helps narrow in, and you get something that's a little bit more interesting, a little bit more substantive, and you also actually start a conversation with somebody, as it like the what do you do question really just closes things off. Right. It seems like this because it's a really large, expansive question. So it seemed like it. But like interview 101 is you don't ask really large, expansive questions because they don't, you don't know where they're going to lead. And they usually don't lead anywhere interesting because the other person doesn't really know where you want them to go. Right. But if you give them this like really tight, what's something you've been working on the last couple of weeks, they're going to pick something that they're excited about. Right. You can't ask somebody what's your favorite or what's your top or what's the number one, whatever. Instead, it's, you're letting them pick something that whatever comes top of mind, there's no such thing as a wrong answer. And it actually gives you something tangible that you can talk about and an insight into not only what they're doing, but also how they think about things. So,
yeah, I threw it over into the LinkedIn chat. I don't know. This is maybe being able to add some thickness to the verbal interaction here, but there's a piece in You Don't Need This Book, which is my first book, that's like show up, stand out, and follow up. Some simple things, but they're really prerequisites. And I jam on a few alternatives to, what do you do? How are you feeling? How do you spend your time? What does a day in your office look like? Like, there's ways that you can just get to more interesting conversations faster. And I've also learned that not having a bunch of ulterior motives is helpful. If you're actively listening and curious about what other people are up to versus always thinking about, okay, how can I sell this person whatever it is, it almost speeds up the ability to keep conversations wild and find more common ground. Another one I don't like is how's the weather? Fun fact for why people talk about the weather, it's because there's nothing else that connects them yet. And so if I know you, don't ask me about the weather. We can go further faster by skipping the obvious. Like it's nice out, like
right. Yeah, it's because people just want to fill the space, right? So I'm supposed to say something socially acceptable. I'm supposed to say something. We'll just retreat to something safe. There's actually, so this goes back a long time. There's I'm a big fan of opera. I love opera, and I like all kinds of music. So I'm not really boxed in. It's very small number of kinds of music that I don't like. Like count on one hand kind of thing. But I love opera. And there are these great series of comedic operas. They're in English by Gilbert and Sullivan from the late 1800s. And they're all about British society. They're all about duty in some sense. They're all mocking like British social structures at the time and the dominant social hierarchies. And there's this bit where in the Pirates of Penzance, where there's this man and this woman who meet and they talk and they're kind of falling in love. And she's with all these other women. And so they're like, we can't be part of this conversation. So they just start talking about the weather. So they have this whole aria in the song of just these girls talking about the weather, because what else are they going to talk about? It's just, and I'm like, how is that still relevant 150 years later?
That's great.
It's wild.
That's great.
Well, this is our usual Ask Us Anything format. We just happen to have an awesome special guest, my buddy Ben, with us today. But if you have a question for us, a startup question, kind of pretty broadly defined, as I always say, you can really ask us a question about anything, and we will opine, even if it has nothing to do with startups. But entrepreneurship is our bag. So just drop those right into the LinkedIn comments. If you're watching this on the replay, drop it wherever you're listening. We'll answer it next time. But feel free to get those going. We do have a few grab bag questions for when we have a moment. We can hit those up. I do keep forgetting. This is just going to be an ongoing thing now. I have this sticky note that I've been carrying around me that just says dice.
I saw that on your last episode. This is how you randomly choose the questions, right?
Yeah, so I have like Dungeons and Dragons dice, the multi-sided dice, and they're at home.
Okay.
And so like I need to bring them in so I can just roll the dice to get the number. I'll never have the exact right number, right? Because it's varies like how many questions people spend in. But my goal is to get to the 20-sided die. That's my goal. We're just going to work up questions until I can use the 20-sided die. But my wife actually does think I should get an actual bingo drum. She thinks that would make a great like piece on my shelf here. It's like a bingo
did
drum.
you ever go to the roller skate rink?
Not since I was a kid.
So they used to have these big dice that they'd roll out based off whatever game they were playing. And it's not like it's a popular thing. It's not like I went there last weekend, right? This is also as a kid.
No judgment here, man.
They still exist. But anyway, that's what I think of it when dice comes to mind. Continue though, my friend.
Yeah. When somebody says dice, if I don't think of like, a board game, I think fuzzy dice and a taxi cab.
That's a good one too.
Those don't roll as well. But anyway, so we will just have to make do with our imaginations until this note actually is enough sufficiently to overcome my ADHD and have me actually get the dice when I'm at home.
I was thinking, we might be spending some time together doing this little series, if you will. And I thought, well, it probably makes sense to show you the collector hardback edition and maybe get you one of the first 100. And the reason I bring it up is now it sounds like I need to get some creative dice, ship it your way, and make sure you don't have to forget anymore.
I do still have a copy of your first book. I think it's over here on this shelf with my business books. But I am looking forward to the new one. Brewed from Within is what you said.
What? You're not supposed to say anything.
Oh.
Don't worry, brewedfromwithin.com is already on lock, so we're good.
Well, for our 10,000, I'm sure, listeners here who are all socially plugged in. But yes, you have a new book you mentioned earlier on the live stream. You have a new book coming. So
we'll talk about that later. Let's get to a question.
All right, let's do it. Let's get to a question. All right, so let's see. I have 4. Well, a lowly 4. That's what happens when I go live solo on Substack on Tuesdays. When there's only one of us, I go through questions a lot faster because there aren't two perspectives. It's a lot more boring, but I go through questions faster. So I put a dent in the grab bag before I realized I should pause right here and see if some of these were bad. All right, but we have 4. We have 4 good ones. We'll turn them into meaty ones. All right, so let's hit up. And again, for all y'all out there in listener land in what I lovingly call the Greek chorus, drop your questions in there. I see you watching. I see you lurkers. I see you lurking. Get to typing.
I invited some friends, so if we know each other, chime in and at least say hi.
Yeah, exactly. You guys know how this works. And for Ben's friends who have been here before, you're going to learn how it works. And it starts with the comment, or if you're one of the cool kids, with a comment. All right. But if you do want to submit a question in advance, which I do recommend, even if you're going to join live, because you can actually add a little bit more detail than you can in a LinkedIn comment. You can go to jdm.bio. There's a link there to do that. All right, but let's dive in. So this is for a B2C mobile app that's targeting millennial couples that are navigating early parenthood. That's me, actually. I have a 2-year-old. So they are early revenue with pilot customers, something like that. Oh, sorry, that's from my drop down. So that's why that's weird. So it's early revenue or pilot customers. Is that not? I was like, how's the B2C having pilot customers? That's weird. Okay, so probably early revenue. The question is, we just had a pitch meeting where the investor said our traction doesn't count because it came from our personal network. How do we prove that this is real and not just friend fueled? They said they have approximately 200 users, 80% retention over 30 days. Most came from word of mouth via parenting groups that they're in, I'm assuming on social media. Not sure if that invalidates the signal or proves we're onto something. So I guess there's two questions in here, it sounds like, right? So like the first one is investors telling them like, oh, our traction doesn't count because it came from our personal network. So that's the kind of question number one. And then question number two, it says that they're getting like 80% retention over 30 days, but a lot of it's coming from word of mouth from parenting groups that they're in. And not sure I understand the question, honestly, like not sure if that invalidates the signal or proves we're onto something. It's not clear to me why that would invalidate the signal, but Ben, why don't you kick us off? You can take either one or both of those. What do you think?
I have a kabillion thoughts. The first
might.
one is I'd like to cheers our co-founders in life. This is a topic that's not often discussed, but the people that you rely on you, like it determines the level of risk that can be applied to your creativity, which access the opportunities for these types of quests. And so working together is a whole nother like layered experience. And so the relationship factor that sparks in this question was something I thought I would double click on and celebrate real quick. When I think about the feedback of this example, I would use it as motivation. I don't care where the signals of traction are coming from. There is a variety of levels. A sign up on an email form is a signal of traction. Of course, you move through the continuum and you get paid customers as the most obvious and perhaps celebrated signal of traction. And to the specific point of being coming from within like a support network, go tackle your challenge networks, or convert someone that you don't know and use that motivation, which might be misguided. It probably sounds like someone who's just simply afraid of getting involved or not interested, and using that as an excuse. But use that as motivation to go find different types of archetypes, different forms of signals, and add that diversity, which is going to embolden you, but also silence some of the critics.
Really strong points. I also really like what you said about our co-founders in life, right? Because it's one of those things that I think we don't talk about like a lot, but Cameron often brings it in as like, we have this, our talent, our treasure, and our ties, right, that we can put toward a project, so whatever it is that we're working on. And we often also say that we're the first investors in our company, right? And so like when we want to make smart decisions, we also want to think like an investor would, because we're investing, if nothing else, the one resource we can never get back, which is time, which is our time, right? That's a finite resource. You can't go raise more time, from the investors, right? That's just not a thing. And so you're kind of this investor, but one of the things that we're also investing in early on is our social ties, right? So like if you're going out and getting your friends to come and use this app, that's like, does it weaken, quote unquote, maybe the evidence of traction? Yeah, it does a little bit. Is that wrong? No, it's a first step, right? It's like the first step of many. It might make it less strong evidence, but at the same time, you are getting that first step in there, and you're actually spending some of that social capital to do it, and you're investing that into your company. And so and they are all in turn investing into your company as well. And I think we don't want to lose sight of like that social component there of there's a community there for each other type of spirit and mentality too, but in what we're asking people to do. Like, is it, as you start to think through, I have this idea, I'm working on this thing, I think there's a market there, is it worth investing our social capital that we have with our friends and family into this effort? Do we have enough evidence to warrant that? I think is one way to think about it.
Well, and I think if it's something that you're like healthily obsessed with, you should be excited to share it within your personal network. But it also, I think, is like wrinkled with the customer discovery activity, knowing that you can get a lot of support from people that want you to succeed no matter what it is.
Totally.
It's taking that extra level of going out into the public, people who don't know who you are or even care about your feelings, and starting to move yourself toward that product market fit with people like that. And it's gonna silence this specific situation, but also help guide your quest through the idea maze in a more meaningful way. I like how you and Cameron are quick to suggest that like the long wrong yes is a dangerous path compared to a proper no earlier on. And this is a way that you can maybe encourage yourself to get to these milestone moments to keep building into a proper direction.
Totally. Couldn't agree more. And I like the idea of a healthy obsession as well, right? Is that
Well, and I was sitting with Brad Feld, which is episode 100 of You Don't Need This podcast. A really neat way to bring season 2 together. 100 timeless episodes. I'm so thankful for those relics. I went to Boulder and sat with him. All episodes are like 30 to 45. This one's 2.5 hours. And one of the things he writes about in the Entrepreneurial's weekly Nietzsche is this like illusion of passion being so important, because it's easy to exude passion for an extrovert where it might be unnatural if you're not into sales or maybe you're more introverted. And so passion is used all the time around entrepreneurship, but I would agree that it's more than passion. And that healthy obsession, doing something that's proper, like the good founder market fit, but also the timely nature of the quest, all comes together in this equation of things that are good ways of spending or investing time versus maybe wasting or passing time.
Right, because that passion is an external signal, but the obsession is the internal one.
It's,
right?
and it's easy to exude. Yo, I'm passionate about these office hours. I really care about JDM, my friends. You should believe me. I'm a biggest fan.
I'm starting to question everything now. You showed up, so that's a data point. So I'll take it.
That's good. Any other thoughts on that question though? That's a good one.
Yeah. I think for me, so like I think they're an old buddy of mine named Danny. She used to talk a lot about these concentric circles, and, so like you may start with somebody who's really close to you, like a friend, but what you want to do is start getting outward into further concentric circles outside of that. So maybe those friends can refer to other friends, and those friends can refer to their friends. And if you do that twice, they're strangers now. Right. And so that at that point, you're starting to get that other evidence. So how can you radiate outward from that core that you started with? And I'm not 100% sure I'm reading this right, but you said most came through word of mouth via parenting groups that we're in. It's not clear whose word of mouth that is. Like, is that you and you're a popular voice in like a Facebook group? And so they're like, hey, this influencer in a Facebook group, blah, blah, blah. That's one thing. Another thing would be like other people in the group are talking about it, and that's leading to referrals. And if the latter is true, then I actually think it's really transferable, because now you found an interesting channel, and also referrals are looking pretty strong, which is really cool. If it's the former, I think it's still interesting, because what you've demonstrated is not necessarily that it will work, but that there's reason to explore trying to get customers from similar groups. And then it becomes, how do you do that? And so it might be an influencer play where you need to find other people like you who are popular in those groups to be influencers. Or it might be that you can run ads to people who belong to certain groups, which is, I think, something you can do with Meta. But like that tells you that there's a path that you can go down to get that additional data. So I wouldn't, like, you had a pitch meeting, investor said traction doesn't count because it came from your network. First of all, I'm going to disagree with that. All traction counts. You have 200 paying users. Like, that's, to say that doesn't count, I think, is folly. But what I do want to contextualize here, and this is me, like, I'm going to assume a number of facts not in evidence. So feel free to object to the judge, Ben, if you want to. But it's like, oftentimes we get this kind of feedback when there's a disconnect between what we're asking of investors and our actual stage. So like, you'll see this where, you get a pre-seed investor pitching to a VC fund that writes 500K checks. Like, there's a disconnect there. And like, they don't invest in companies like yours. But you're close enough that they'll probably take the meeting, because it's deal flow for them, and they're going to get on your investor updates if they like you. And then 6 months from now, like they're going to want to see all the data points along the way of you making this great progress. And so they're going to take the meeting, but they're going to tell you something like, you don't have enough traction yet. And like, while that's true, it's also not contextualized to where you're at. It's contextualized to where they're at, and that's not as helpful. And so if you were to sit, like, try to, you have 200 paying users, yeah, they came through some personal relationships, and you're pitching to an angel investor who writes 25K checks, and they're telling you that your traction doesn't count. I actually have a problem with that. I actually think that they're wrong. But if you're like, because that is perfectly appropriate for that stage, and 200 paying users is nothing to sneer at. That having been said, again, if you're talking to that VC that's writing 500K, 750K, 1 million checks, yeah, I think that no, it's not that it doesn't count, but it's definitely insufficient to warrant an investment at that scale. So I'm assuming too many facts and evidence, but that's how I wanted to kind of elaborate on that.
Yeah, and I'll just finish with something that I'm reminded by, kind of also through the lens of Techstars universe. David Cohen does a remarkable workshop within a Techstars accelerator talking about earning commitments from investors. And that means a lot of things, right? We won't go into all the different depths of that broader thought. But in this situation, one follow-up question could be compelling. Like, oh, okay, that's cool. I mean, we really appreciate the 200 paying users that we've curated. We're really taking care of them and adding, different angles of different types of customers as well. I'm curious, like, if we were to gather, what type of customer might be interesting, and if we were to gather 5 or 10 of those, could we get that commitment for the 250K that we're talking about you brewing into this equity idea? And so putting them back on versus, oh yeah, I'm sure you'd like to stay in tune, and giving them all the leverage to basically say, yeah, I'm interested, keep me posted forever. Maybe there's something that they are looking for, and you can kind of actively ask about that and come back and say, yo, I've got 10 from your network that somehow is more meaningful. And let's get this 250K written into the deal. So getting those commitments along the way versus leaving it open-ended and losing all the leverage.
Yeah, that's a great point, because these are bidirectional relationships, right? A lot of times I think founders, maybe it's because of insecurity, they talk about investment like it's charity almost. Like they're trying, like that there's all these moneyed people, and these moneyed people can help us out, by writing checks. And then, yes, we'll be successful and get the money. But like, there's a subservient relationship there. And I think that's absolutely the wrong way to look at it, because these investors have capital. They don't want the money sitting around. They want to deploy that capital. They want to put that into a vehicle that's going to make them money. And they obviously like this asset class because they're hearing your pitch within this asset class. And so like they want to put money into smart bets. Like that's literally what they're doing. That's how they're going to make more money. That's the game that they're choosing to play. And so you're also offering a service to them, but what you want to do is make sure that you're making the most attractive bet for them possible, right? That's how you're competing against the other ones. But it's definitely bidirectional. And there are lots of investors that you should be saying no to as well.
Yeah. Well,
right?
And knowing your numbers, like we talk about working through financial modeling, and it's not you and your financial model against the investor. It's you and the investor using this financial model to create scenarios, and you knowing your numbers, they're all wrong, but it shows a level of sophistication and an interest in turning their money into more money. And that will be well received. And so in that case too, if you are interacting with someone and they say, well, this type of traction isn't as interesting, well, let's use the financial model that we have and plug in some different types of capital from different sources and see what that does to the outcome. That's going to impress someone more than saying, like feeling like you've been belittled. Taking that and turning it into this two-way street of trust is your opportunity here. All right, we're one question in and we're 30 minutes through. So it's been nice to join you. And we have 3 more questions that we're not going to get.
I guess that whole thing when I said we only have 4 questions, I should have saved some. Apparently that was wrong. I think I went through like 5 or 6 questions in 30 minutes when I by myself. Okay, and that's not to say that I was brief, right? Brevity is not.
Well, let's do the next one as a quick fire. All right.
All right.
The challenge will be ask the question, and we have to respond in 1 word or at most a sentence.
Okay,
and we can then go thicker on it because it deserves it. But I'd like a challenge.
Okay, so I read the question just a second ago, and I think you're going to regret that. But this one has your name all over it, Ben. This is definitely a Ben question. I love this.
All right, the answer is community.
I mean, it's going to be close. So, all right, here we go. So this is it's a health tech, med tech startup. They're targeting private practice clinicians and independent therapists. They don't say what kind of therapists. Their product is live, but they are pre-revenue. And they said we had a co-founder step away last month, and now investors are asking about team stability. Do we bring someone on new fast or show we can run lean? And they say the co-founder was technical, but they've got contractors in place to keep things shipping. But we're not sure how it looks externally when we're about to raise. I feel like this like stepped away is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
You just used all your words.
I know I did. That's my feedback to you is
all right. I've got my single word, and it's patience.
Patience. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you want to rush into a bad idea. Hiring someone on a outside contractor type of position is an easy way to potentially keep momentum growing. It's going to slow because you have to pay each step of the way, and that slows everyone down. Versus having someone internally that can get weird with it, no matter how far you want to take whatever feature or whatever idea it might be. But at the same side, bringing someone into the cap table, it's like a marriage, Yes. And so rushing into a bad idea in order to appease external feedback, I think it'd be better beneficial to having real conversations with those already in the camp to determine potentially their second, third degree network. Okay, this is the type of, skill set that we're now kind of missing. Does anyone come to mind? If they are truly in the same direction as you are, they're going to want to help potentially connect dots. And along the way, of course, not relying on others to deliver, because that's a big gap and someone you're going to spend a fair amount of time with. And so, yes, online connectivity makes it efficient, but the serendipity of being in like premium human time, right? IRL, in real life, showing up into community environments with those real skills that you're looking for might have you colliding in a strategic way, and it won't happen fast, but you could find someone that you can build long term with and fill that gap in a more lasting way. And so that's why patience was the word that emerged, because this process should take time. Otherwise, my fear is you're going to run into a similar challenge very soon.
I couldn't agree more. To answer from a different side, just for variety's sake, I think I'll pick my word as calm. This is an opportunity to panic. And I think that like that's not the right it's not the right time to, as like Seinfeld would say, to be dangling from the shower curtain with the ice bucket on your head. I think this is the wrong time for that. I mentioned before that like Step Away is doing a lot of heavy lifting, because I'm not sure if the reaction to this, when they say stability, are they saying we are worried about your ability to make forward progress, or are they saying we're worried about your ability to maintain a cohesive team? Because those are two different concerns. And if they're concerned about y'all being a bunch of crazies and not getting along and making impulsive decisions, like to your point, Ben, about jumping into bed before you're really ready for that step. And so therefore you have this really unstable team, and now they're worried about what that looks like going forward. Like that's a whole different thing that's going to be much more difficult to navigate. And that I think that the only way to really approach that is by gathering more data points, by now correcting the ship and responding in ways that are not that's also calm. But if it actually is about your ability to make forward progress, like trying to overreact or overcorrect or something like that, I think is going to be a mistake. Instead, suggesting that it might be time to, and I know this word's probably going to land wrong with the founder, but slow down a little bit. And I don't mean like tap the brakes and stop doing things. I mean, but try not to move quicker than you're able to move at the moment, because it's likely to lead to more frustration, more chaos, more mistakes. Whereas I think, is it the Marines that have the phrase where they say, what is it? I'm blanking on it here, but it has to do with slowing down in order to speed up. Smooth is slow, slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. That's what it is. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast, right? The idea that like if you slow down enough to remove the mistakes, the absence of mistakes is going to make you move quicker. And so like that's I think the same idea here, is that as you have that chaos coming in, maintain that calm, maintain that serenity, be patient, and actually work through the challenge in the moment. And that's how you're going to get those better data points. So you're going to reinstill confidence to everybody outside the company that you're on the right track, I think is how I would say that.
That's also in rowing. There's a lot of applications where slow and fast resonates. Man, when you write every week for 3 years, it creates indexed thoughts. And so you mentioned that, and I'm over on LinkedIn. I'm like trying to keep up with the timeliness of our conversation and these like deep resources. So I threw the real skills in there as you're thinking about others who might fill gaps in areas that you aren't good at, honestly, or don't care about. And then also I've got a piece on that slow and fast that I threw into LinkedIn as well. And lastly,
Awesome.
I think the honest why behind this person's departure is much more important than the fact that it happened.
Right.
And so the fact that we don't know that why is where some of the abstract responses are coming from, but they still all apply.
They do, yeah, and I couldn't agree more. Like, because even if it's a quote unquote good reason, right? Like, let's say that this founder had an opportunity that they needed to take advantage of for their own cash flow reasons, and so they just had to step down from the company. It was nothing about there's nothing interpersonal or something like that, but they just had to kind of step aside. That's still an important. There's still a lesson in there. Which is like, so what does that mean for the future of the company? Like, what are the milestones that you're going to have to get to in order for the situation on the ground to be different, right? And we see this happen all the time. It's like, that's probably the best, scenario, and particularly in the early days where it's not expected for the founders to be compensated. That happens a lot because the cash flow comes a lot slower than founders think it will, but particularly at that level. But even then, I think even in those really common scenarios, that there's a nugget in there that, like, if you get to that, like the truth about why this happened, like that's going to be how we react to it, is going to be in that truth.
I'll close with a quick book recommendation specifically on this team narrative. The Song of Significance by Seth Godin was released I think it was maybe 2004. It was a manifesto for teams, and it talks about how most of us, through the lens of work, are looking for a sense of significance. And so as you're finding someone to join this quest, understanding how you can deliver that in a lasting way, but also with milestones. So it's not like, we need you to rebuild the entire platform. You're not getting paid, and you're getting a little portion of equity. Like, whoa, slow down. Like JDM talked about, apply some patience, and think of this as almost like a waiting room for you to gear up in order for what's next.
It's a great metaphor. Well, we'll end the question on that point. I won't top it, so I won't try. Or I can't top it, so I won't try. We'll do another one. See where should we do the same thing? Should we do a rapid fire?
Well, that went really well. I mean, it took 10-minute rapid fire, but
Hey, that's better than the 30 from the first one.
I'm playing. I like the one word like quick thought, and it led to many other layers from there. I'm happy to do whatever.
All right, let's try our one word again. Let's see how it goes. All right, so this is a B2B SaaS. All right, yay, we're back into my comfort zone. B2B SaaS. Their product is live, but it's pre-revenue, and it's for freelancers to manage their project workflows. So kind of a dense space, crowded market, but I don't have any other details, so we'll just go with that. All right, we're seeing users hack our product in ways we didn't expect. One customer's using it completely outside of our intended use case. Should we pivot to support that behavior? That's their question. But they also said one agency is using it as a lightweight CRM, and they're our most active user, but it's not what we built for. Now others are asking for similar features.
You want to go first this time?
Yeah, my word, I think, will be data.
That's great.
And I'll expand on that, but what's your word?
Mine was feedback is data.
Okay, so we're all right.
But also the word that first sparked was roadmap. Thinking about how paying customers can help guide you toward that product market fit for more of customers like that. However, what I heard in that question was one customer is doing this. Okay, that's an outlier. Appreciate the wonky, welcome the weird, and take that feedback as data, knowing that the more data you collect, the better decision making you'll have. But don't get too misguided. Going back to our other words of patience, it's not like the squirrel that always is building the next feature trying to satisfy one paying customer or another. Give it some time to feel the thickness of that reality, and yet also the agility required to continue kind of pivoting is too strong of a word, right? But tweaking toward what the product perhaps truly can be.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so for me, if I want to know, what is the data telling us here? Is this an opportunity or is this a squirrel? Right? Is it is it an opportunity or is it a distraction? And in B2B SaaS, we are just so chock full of squirrels. There are squirrels everywhere because businesses are all different and everybody's got their weird shit and everybody's doing weird shit. And so they want little tweaks, little edges, and everybody's using a different CRM. They're trying to, so it's just a space where everybody wants something slightly different. And you're trying to find the signal in the noise to say, this is the nugget that we can actually scale into a broad market, as opposed to all these edge case things. And so when you tell me like you said, Ben, one customer, so N of one, let's slow down a little bit here. But they also did mention, so others are asking for similar features, although similar is also a yellow flag there because you don't want to be a service as a software, So is this can you form an hypothesis around what a customer would look like who would use this new thing? And if you can form a cohesive hypothesis around that, is that hypothesis at its current state more compelling than your old one? And more compelling is both what does the data show right now in terms of which hypothesis makes more sense, but also which one represents the greater opportunity, right? So which one is a better wedge, bigger TAM, whatever the math problem is there, so that this is something that's worth exploring. And then if it is, run an experiment, not a series of experiments. Don't Thelma and Louise your startup right off the cliff, but actually just run an experiment to see if you can really quickly invalidate that opportunity as a squirrel, and then get back to the mission if not. And if that does pan out, cool.
I like that experimentation and almost like a beginner's mindset, but to your point, not going too far down that rabbit hole and kind of losing sight. I also think of the remarkability factor, right? In a dense space, when you're working in a loud industry, that might be a signal to add some remarkability and the twist that makes you unique. And now you've got that kind of niche angle, and we only need about 1,000 true fans to make something really go forward. So it could be an interesting path to pursue. But at the same side, like collecting more data and using that paid traction as the guide for continuing to roadmap development is hard to do, especially if you are capable and can continue to build. In fact, there's almost a safety that awaits those who just go back into the workshop and keep building without letting the idea breathe and doing some of the hard part of customer discovery. And the reality is sales, right? I mean,
Yeah.
getting more sales will help you gain confidence in whatever direction it may be.
Well said. Well said. We did that one in 6 minutes.
Oh, we are moving.
We
Continuing
are
on.
we are on fire. And we have one more, and this is still an Ask Us Anything format. Why are you guys so quiet today? This is such an I love our friends who join us here, but they are an unpredictable bunch. Sometimes they are just firing up the questions in the chat, and we can't even get through the ones in the grab bag. And then other times they're just what I will assume is sitting back, drinking their coffee and enjoying the banter. We'll go with that. All right. So this one here would not, of course, be a 2025 office hours if we did not have an AI machine learning tool in the mix. So here we go. This one's for solo founders and productivity nerds. So cool. I can opine on that personally. That's awesome. But it's an MVP in progress, so a little earlier stage. We built this product to scratch our own itch, and it turns out we're the power users, but we're struggling to find others who care as much. How do we know if this is a niche or just a personal project? It's a great question. Really big compliment on that question. They say the tool is slick and solves a real pain for us. We've had trouble explaining it clearly to anyone who didn't build it with us.
Boy, I'll jump in here because I have a personal experience with this. We built an open house scheduler when I was in the home building realm, and it really solved my problem of connecting a group of real estate agents with a group of homes and curating the scheduling without emails, texts, missed calls. It really delivered a big solution that was actually selling properties. The issue arises when you leave that industry and the founder market fit fades. All of a sudden you're stuck with 0 customers, cool technology, and less interest or personal bandwidth to commit to really building a company. I look back on that experience and I wish we would have done more customer discovery. I know we've talked about that a lot in the last 45 minutes. But that would be my recommendation, is getting out of your own experience, appreciating what you've built, because it could potentially push you further, faster, but also taking time to do the hard work of getting out of the workshop and trying to practice your storytelling, articulating the value, like finding people who are interested in being paid customers. That'll create longevity with the platform beyond your personal time using it.
Well said. I don't have too much to add to that, I think, other than to say the obvious thing that probably just deserves to be said out loud, which is you are not your customer. And that's like, it's great to start with this idea of I have this pain, and so maybe other people do too. But then the question becomes, do other people have that pain too? And so, I mean, you jumped the gun from an entrepreneurial perspective and built the thing, right? And if it is worth it to build this tool to solve your own pain, then cool, right? And if you're like, oh, I have this really big pain, I'm going to build this tool because it's going to make my life so much easier. You build this tool, you make your life so much easier. And now you're like, okay, well, now maybe I can make money off of this in other ways too. Then like, also cool, right? So that's all fine. But now you're in a position where you're a solution in search of a problem. And it's I heard 2 things in there. What was the exact wording you used? We have trouble explaining it clearly to anyone who didn't build it with us. So that's number 1. That's really standing out to me as interesting. That I'm going to come back to. And then the other one was we're struggling to find others who care as much as you do. And so like those are two completely different things. And it might be that you mean that they're not caring as much simply because they're not, in your words, getting it. But when most of the time when a founder is saying that customers don't get it, what they're actually hearing is not a misunderstanding. It's that the customers just don't care. It's not a big enough problem for them to solve. And so having these, getting all of these signals, which sound like maybe they're kind of robust, that are telling you you're on, that there's no there. I think it's probably time to pause enough to accept that. And then Ben, like you said, do the customer interviews, like do the discovery process, go through that, like find who the customers who might have that problem, learn from them. When they do sort of understand what you're trying to do and it's compelling and interesting, then you can have them echo back what they heard, and that'll become language that you can then use to do others. But that's the secondary thing. The first thing is like, again, you're a solution in search of a problem. So the first thing you have to find is the problem.
Yeah, care is scarce. And if it's not, the worst part of their day, you could be building a vitamin versus a pain reliever. And so when you're talking with others about it, maybe forget the inner workings of the engine. They don't actually care how this feature does that and it connects to the blockchain. And you can really overwhelm people in those earlier conversations. And so this is a challenge for anyone technical that's building something remarkable, but can be hard to explain because you're at the deepest level of understanding, while the people you're interacting with are simply like unaware of any. So you have to move them, sequence them through the layers of understanding. And so one question could be, what's the worst thing of your day? And you might have the lens of this specific topic, but not trying to overwhelm them with what you've built, and instead like recognizing you're delivering a solution, and slowing it down in those conversations will help people that haven't gone to the depths of understanding like you have figure out where they can kind of go beyond the lack of awareness, move through fear, and getting them curious, maybe taking a small milestone flavored step toward action. This is a way that you can get people moving in a shared direction without feeling like you have to get them 0 to 1 all in this moment.
Totally. I'll add on one final thing, which is yesterday I published an article on my traction thinking Substack. It was all on severity and urgency, that I think I recommend checking out for this as well. And for those of you who've like been on office hours before, you've probably heard severity and urgency come up because it's something that comes up an awful lot in startups. But there's this phenomenon also out there that I call the slow startup suicide, which is where a startup is chasing this really severe problem. And so all the early signals are pointing to like a really interesting direction. Everything seems great, but then the sales never materialize, and it doesn't make a lot of sense because the price seemed right. It was a problem that was severe. They like the solution. They can see themselves using it. Their eyes light up. All the signals are positive, but what was missing was that there was no urgency to solve it. Right? It wasn't problem number 1 on the list. It was problem number 5 on their list. And so you might be getting some of that here. So assuming that they're actually getting it and they just don't care as much, it could just be that this was for some reason particularly important to you, that this problem was for some reason more important to you than it was to others. You're solving a problem that they have, but maybe just wasn't important. Like it's not problem number 1, problem number 2, problem number 3, and nobody pays to solve problem number 5. And if that's true, then you can either say, okay, what are their higher problems on their list, and is that something that we can pivot product into solving for them? Or alternatively, is there a group of, can you hypothesize a group of people for whom that problem that you're solving is number 1 on their list? And then like, can we target them instead of this general set of productivity nerds who are just known for either being really dead set on their productivity solution, or 2 are serial early adopters. They'll just try every productivity tool and stick to none of them, right? Like I hate the productivity space for that reason, and because I'm one of those productivity nerds. But like you will not get money from me probably in this ever. You might get a month out of me, but I'm just going to try all the tools. Again, ADHD. But anyway, so like I would just kind of keep that in mind. Is there urgency? If there's not, who might have urgency, and or how can you solve a problem that is urgent, and kind of approach it that way.
Yeah, one tactic, and I continue to light up the LinkedIn. I don't know if it's comments. I don't know how long these last, but all these comments have thickness in writing. And so this one with pain reliever versus vitamins. But going back to what you said, there might be an interesting tactic of revisiting the vocabulary. I liked what you said about maybe finding different potential audiences. And looking at your key phrase list of, what your website really talks to, perhaps productivity tool was your first assumption, but maybe there's a specific industry that really would come in from the side door, or there's a different type of vocabulary word that attracts a different audience, and practicing your storytelling. Understanding, like trying to say as little about the features as you can to see what response you get. But then when the next opportunity arises, go in a different direction, and being thoughtful with how you're telling the story, so that you can move people down through those layers of understanding, and get them more on the interested side versus the low care, no thanks side of the continuum.
Totally. Well, that actually brings us to the end. Our 4 questions was, as it turns out, the perfect number.
Well, it was good to pit stop knowing we were taking a bit too long. That we jammed in 3.5 hours, and that got us to where we needed to be.
I am rewriting history in my favor here. It was obviously the perfect number of questions to leave for us today, as you can see by us ending right here, close to the end of the hour. So super fun. For those of you who, well, we can't answer your question now because we're out of time, but drop it in. We'll put it into the grab bag, hit jdm.bio, hit the calendar thing. There's a link there. Submit your question if you want the grab bag here. Again, it's a little bit more detailed and you can probably easily put into a LinkedIn comment, but you do you. We'll take the question either way. It's cool. And Ben, you're coming back next week?
Well, that's what I was going to say, is there might be some bonus time shared. And so if we didn't hit all the thoughts that you've had in our time together, there's more coming soon. Next Friday.
Awesome. Next Friday. And
same place next week.
We'll also have, in addition to Ben, we'll have one more special guest joining us in the mix. So it'll be a weird threesome, which we're gonna test out to see if we can sustain a guest when Cameron comes back, because we'd love to keep having you guys.
Cameron's gonna come back to a Zoom wall full of people talking, and
we're just gonna add
a 10-hour office hour.
It's just going to be how many people is the right number of people? I think 3 is probably our cap, but we'll give it a try next week. So I don't know, Ben, if you know Rajiv Menon from Orlando. He's a pretty cool dude.
I'm looking forward to sharing some time. I'll share a quick closing thought here as you wrap us up. But I appreciate this. JDM, man, it's been fun knowing you a long time. We spent rooftop vibes together. 1MC Sacramento means something to me, and all that I've mentioned earlier, you and Cam and the entire startup community is doing over there in California is remarkable. I'm the regional rep, as you mentioned, for 1 Million Cups. And so if you're looking for that weekly front porch, right, this opportunity to stay connected and supported in your support and also challenge networks, 1MC has about 105 communities across the United States. And it's an easy way to find the collision of community, and helps us continue to learn and connect through this entrepreneurial lifestyle. I'm not going anywhere. As you mentioned, I'll be back next week. But if you'd like to connect, benmcdougall.com is an easy way to find me. And I love hearing what people are building. So JDM, thanks again for the opportunity. And I'll close with how I sign most of my books. May the best of your todays be the worst of your tomorrows. Keep building.
We're just going to call it there. We're just going to call it. Thanks, Ben, for joining. And we'll be back in y'all's